say, I was reading the
Out of beer.
minutes or whatever. So I missed the last one. The Moore Brewery thing's a rumor, right? Or did the,
Well, I think people were saying that because the head brewer left.
oh, okay.
Okay, in the absence of Jerry, our chair, I'll be chairing this meeting, and let's call the meeting to order with roll call.
Jerry Cabasco, Cecilia Green,
Here.
Robert Perry, Tracy Smedilla,
Here?
Nanette Gutenkoff, Joel Laporte,
Here.
Adam Lewinsky,
Here.
Stephanie Ganzi,
Here.
Michelle Hughes.
Here.
Okay, we have the April 8th meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 8th?
So moved as presented.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh, good.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public comment, I don't see anybody wanting to comment tonight, so we'll move on to number 5, RECon 2019 Access O'Hare West.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. This weekend, Scott and I, along with Mayor Wallace, are going to be heading to a few thousand miles west of here to the ICSC RECon convention. It's the largest annual real estate convention in the world. It's held in Las Vegas every May around this time. And hopefully you notice this large booth, I'm going to call it a screen, here when you walked in that I've been entrusted with to transport to and from the trade show. We are one out of the 10 communities that work together on Access O'Hare West. 5 of us are going to the show. However, Schaumburg really is not participating in the booth. They, for lack of a better description, they kind of do their own thing. And so there will be 4 communities splitting up booth duties for the 3 days. Here you see a nice photo. I'm going to state for the record, too, Commissioner Perry is present. Once again, so this trade show is held in Las Vegas. We'll be participating as part of Access O'Hare West. I've included some of the Access O'Hare West information here in the packet and showing you up on the screen the 10 communities that comprise this group to collectively market this area. We are the furthest west out of Access O'Hare West groups, with Elmhurst being the furthest east, and centered along I-390 Expressway. So we have meetings set up with a number of retail representatives. This trade show is, well, it's attended by nearly 40,000 people, so it's hard to categorize, but for some of the newer members, I always say that ICSC stands for the International Council of Shopping Centers. However, shopping center owners really just comprise a fraction, maybe 1/4 to maybe 20 to 25% of the members. It's largely populated by retail brokers, probably would be the largest category, with municipal representatives following behind along with shopping center owners. And then a good quarter of the people are in all types of services and industries related to retail, as you might imagine. There's a lot of attorneys there. There's a lot of financiers, bankers. Anyhow, it's a show we're going to be going to this weekend. It goes through the following Wednesday. We have about 8 meetings set up in addition to several hours of manning the booth. Like I said, we have to split up 3 days worth of booth hours among about 6 people, and we're not really going to be there Wednesday, so we're taking the hours throughout Monday and Tuesday. We reported to this last year, was the first year we got this group together to do this initiative. And we've participated also in the Chicago show in the fall. So I do want to mention, this is really following up to some questions last year. We do gather the leads collectively as a group. We are part of a group, but at the same time, we represent our respective communities. For instance, Scott and I have meetings set up during the hours when we're going to be at the booth. We're not going to be telling the people we're meeting with about Bensonville or Elmhurst or anything like that. But when we're standing at the booth, just staffing the booth, so to speak, for a number of hours, we'll answer general questions about, you know, where we are, what the towns are, who we are. Truthfully, last year, we probably knew about 90% of the people who stopped by the booth were brokers and developers and property owners already in the Chicago market. So in that respect, it's a good opportunity to reconnect with some of them. As we say, we strengthen our relationships with them. These are people who we want to take our phone calls and answer our emails when we make them. And likewise, quite a few of the people that we're meeting with already have some very significant investments in Bartlett to the tunes of millions of dollars with some of the shopping center owners. So it's always good to meet with them. So with that, I can answer any questions, but that's the short of it, is it's the largest retail trade show in the country, in the world, and it takes up the entirety of the Las Vegas Convention Center, North Hall, South Hall, and Central Hall, where our booth is located.
Who's attending with you this year?
I'm sorry?
Which communities are attending?
Thank you.
I'm going to go take a look at this. Bloomingdale is attending. We are attending. Itasca, Wooddale is attending, and Hanover Park is attending. So it's fine. And Schaumburg, like I mentioned, but Schaumburg doesn't staff the booth. They have meetings scheduled from morning to night, all 3 days.
So other than the cost of the booth, what other like advertising or sponsorship dollars are spent to get Access O'Hare's name out in front of the attendees?
It's still primarily through social media. One of the leaders of the group was from Wooddale, who recently left the city of Wooddale, as well as somebody from Itasca. So we've had to regroup, so to speak. That's how I end up with this booth here, as well as doing a lot of the other work for it. So we still collectively do some marketing, and we're still tweaking it and improving it. And at a later meeting, I'll be telling you about a trade show that we're doing on our own coming up this summer over at Linford Winery. So we still meet frequently, usually twice a week, and marketing's not the only thing we talk about, but it's one of the major focuses that we have.
Because just one thing I kind of noticed was on the Twitter page, it looks like no one has updated it for like 3 months. So it might be like nice in the next week before you guys go, just to have some new posts on there, maybe some new success stories on there.
I agree. I have volunteered somebody else to work on the Twitter page. I have my own role within this group, and it's not really doing everything, but I saw that as well.
Any other questions for Tony about this exhibit show?
Were you successful in soliciting, well, I know you were successful in soliciting leads from last year, but have any of those gone through the pipeline and effectively closed since last year?
They really haven't. Last year, our primary focus was on hotels. A bulk of our meeting were with hotels last year. The village owns 11 acres, as many of you know, at the intersection of 59 and Lake Street. So this was part of a larger marketing effort that we embarked on about 1.5 years ago to try to sell that property. So we were really meeting with, like I said, mostly hotels and a couple of other targeted retailers. One of the most targeted retailers, of course, is a grocery store, and we're repeating some of the meetings that we had last year in that regard. So that's not something we're gonna give up on. We're gonna keep following up on that. The hotel project isn't as promising, but we are close to selling off a portion of that 11 acres. So just today, Scott and I spoke with our broker who we're going to the show with and modifying our marketing information to better reflect what we're trying to sell now, which is more like 4 acres.
Great, thank you.
Let the record show that Jerry Kolosko arrived. And Jerry, if you were ready for number 6, if you would like to take over. Jerry? Okay, I guess I'll continue.
Continue, yeah, please.
She wasn't sure.
Dining guide,
No, I'm okay.
the dining guide's almost to come out, right?
Yes, this is something that I'm very excited to talk about and show you tonight. And I want to give a little background before I just give the quick blurb. We started doing a dining guide again, for those of you who've been on the commission for some time, during the throes of the recession about 9 or 10 years ago. We were coming up with more paper-based marketing initiatives back then than digital. And one of the things that we put out was our initial dining guide. I think with the memo had it back in 2010 or 2011. And we've updated it periodically. And one of the things that actually holds up updating it is that we're often working on restaurant projects. And a lot of times, for instance, when we're working with Indian Express, I don't really want to print it before Indian Express opens. And then we're working with Bartlett Tap, and I don't really want to print another one until Bartlett Tap opens. Well, here we are in May of 2019, and we've updated it. So these are always a snapshot in time. You know, I can tell you that for sure. Looking at the dining guides over the years, it's probably about half the restaurants are on it from when we first did it about 10 years ago, not including all the fast food ones. But anyhow, this is an update for summer 2019. Since the last time this was printed, 6 of the establishments had closed since late 2016. However, there's an additional 8, so we squeezed 2 more in there. Joey hasn't been around previously for the other renditions of this, so I think you worked on the update of this. And, you know, sometimes we do something like we drop that McDonald's or KFC is fast food. We figure somebody can figure that out on their own. So we have, you know, sometimes we just make it a little smaller font. Whatever the case is, we squeeze 2 additional ones in. Just thinking about it before tonight's meeting, I realized that within the next, let's call it 5 months to a year, we should be seeing Gambits open, which will be categorized as a restaurant. It's primarily a restaurant. Mr. Raffidia would open a place called Fire and Ice in Bartlett Plaza that would be renamed the Streets of Bartlett. Everybody's excited to hear about more brewing coming to the downtown, and I can't say that we'll wait until more brewing's completed to do an update of this, but that'll sure be something worth making a new printing of this. And then also Beef Shack, somebody had mentioned earlier, at the Galleria of Bartlett, Beef Shack has a signed lease. So, of course, there will be more restaurants in the future coming to town. It doesn't please me to say that restaurants will continue to close. So anyway, long story short, this is a nice update of 2019 summer dining guide. This is just the rendering for now, but we're going to print out quite a few of these. We put them in all the public places. We put them in the Chamber of Commerce office, the train station, Village Hall, the library, the athletic center, the big box retailers I usually ask. I put them in Jewel and Home Depot. Certainly going to ask Amita if they'll add it into their collection. So this is something that will be going out. We haven't printed them yet, besides, a few copies in the packets. So, but this is what it'll look like. And it should be coming out real soon.
Like Oliver's isn't on here?
I'm sorry?
Oliver's?
There's no, you might mean Olivia's?
Oh, yes, Olivia's. I always do that. I always call Oliver's, but it's Olivia's.
I thought we had added that one. Good catch. Yeah, we had meant to add that one. Thank you.
Is it something that
You
could,
mean Villa Olivia?
No, Olivia's.
It's a gaming parlor
cafe?
that has food.
Yeah, they have boar's head meat.
Well, then, should Maze be on here too?
Not so much. We're talking about food that's prepared fresh, which Olivia's does have.
Okay.
The gaming cafes we haven't included. That would probably be 6 more places. But
But Olivia's different than a gaming establishment.
yes, they have gaming, but they have a deli there with, I had mentioned with the boar's head meat, they slice it, they make sandwiches there, and
Okay, I hope
that one would be included.
Is it something that could be placed on the website and like updated every
Absolutely.
year? So that,
Yeah, not just website, but interactive, like on
Yeah.
a map application.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is current on the application right now.
When do you expect these to be available? The printed?
Within a week or two, yeah. I mean, after we return from ICSC,
Okay.
we'll send them to print.
And do these only go out during the summer?
No, they've
Okay.
been printed in the fall before.
I just
You know,
thought,
it's
because
not
if
that
it's
hard
a
to
summer
update.
guide, maybe you want to like earmark ones that have outdoor seating, because that might be an appeal, definitely.
like that
towards
idea.
Summertime.
Do that. Put some kind of icon next to the ones with outdoor seating, because we do want to promote that.
Yeah.
Cafe umbrella.
There you go.
Any other comments on the dining guide? Okay, let's move to the Google Insider Seminar that Tony attended.
I think it was 2 meetings ago, I had mentioned to the EDC that as part of Kane County Economic Development, I had attended a Google seminar at the Kane County building, and the title of it was Google Insider Tips, so it definitely had good search engine optimization terms for the presentation itself. I attended this and was suitably impressed with Nathan Masirian, and we thought that it would be a good idea to present this information for free here in Bartlett. So we've been communicating with him and met with him last week and firmed up this date of July 11th. And he'll be here. I think we've decided to hold this at Bartlett Hills, but for this we have it as to be determined. But the date and the time is set. It'll be 7/11, July 11th, from 8 till 10 a.m. It will be free to attend. And just a little bit about Nathan Masirian is he has his own marketing firm, and he's an expert when it comes to positioning your business with Google in particular. It's not his only area of expertise, but it's one that he's really going on a roadshow for, I could say. He's been going around the country. If you follow him on LinkedIn, he was in North Carolina last week doing this. He's done this presentation, in various communities around here the past few months. And like I said, I attended it myself, found it interesting. There's a science to it if you want to move from the second or third page in a Google search to the first, or if you're in the 5th position for restaurants Bartlett, but you have your heart set on getting second or first position. Not saying it's a guarantee with this guy, but he has a few tricks of the trade. And I'm not going to share them now. I'm going to try to get you all to attend this and share the information and, fill the room for it. We always try to hold seminars like this. We had just, I think, a week ago maybe, the organized training with the police department on how to respond to an active shooter. And it was very well attended. I went to the morning session. I think I counted 35 businesses there. I know Scott went to the late afternoon or evening session. I believe there was a similar amount attending that. So we do occasionally have these seminars to offer free of charge to local businesses. So you'll be hearing about this one. Again, we're going to ask you to share the information. Breakfast with the Villages this week, and we'll be handing out some information on that as well. Is that Wednesday or Thursday? Wednesday. So cool. That's coming up, and you're all invited. I mean, it's a couple months leeway, so if you can tweak your schedule a little bit, you might find it interesting for your own businesses.
Well, it says registration is required. So do we have to register, or did you register us in?
No, this is just kind of we haven't done an official flyer for it yet, but we will ask for people to register for it. If you don't want to wait for that and just let me know if you want to go, you can just email to me or Scott. We're going to provide some food, so we want to try to get a head count on it.
Food is always good.
Yeah.
Free with food, what's the capacity there at Bartlett Hills?
I mean, Breakfast with the Village, I usually see around 100 people or 80
Okay.
people. I mean, it's pretty full.
That's good.
So, yeah, I think, Scott is saying a lot more than that.
Good. I think it'll be well attended. We all need to know how to move up in Google. Any other questions?
Just so Scott, Tony, when you do that flyer that you're going to send it to me, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to
a
count on the
calendar.
Chamber of Commerce to blast it out more than once to your membership, for sure. So we're not necessarily just going to limit it to Bartlett businesses with commercial locations or chamber members. We have a lot of home-based businesses this could apply to. So, there was the presentation that I saw, like I said, this gentleman has a number of presentations, and he asked me how I wanted it to be, and I said basically an hour to an hour and a half about the Google tips in particular. So it does apply to home-based businesses as well. If you've ever Google searched and home-based businesses come up, you'll notice that you see the neighborhood that they're in. It won't say that you live at 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street, but it'll show kind of the neighborhood that you're in. It might show Main and Devon or something like that. And that's part of the presentation too, to show how you can help set that up. So you're not totally at Google's mercy only, but you can contribute to your own Google rankings and profile. I should mention that part of this was that Mr. Masirian afforded us the opportunity to work with a business to use as a case study, and we are using the Bartlett Tap. Just opened, obviously, and while he has very strong Facebook page and is trending in Facebook, a lot of times his website is sorely lacking, and this will focus really on the Bartlett Tap website as a case study.
Okay, the last item on the agenda is the TOD Overlay Steering Committee Open House.
Yes, this is a steering committee that ED Commissioner Joe Laporte is part of. I'm part of it. Scott's part of it. Trustee Daney, other commissioners from the Plan Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as planning staff. Dr. Ackerman's part of it. And what this is a committee that we've been meeting roughly monthly, seems like for the past 6 months or so, as a follow-up project to our downtown TOD project. The TOD plan is already going on nearly 3 years old. It was approved in fall of 2016. We applied for an implementation grant, and in the form of an implementation grant was to help us formulate this form-based code. Again, I could talk about it forever, but the short of it is we're talking about a new zoning and building code overlay district for the downtown that promotes walkability, greater density, less reliance on parking. It addresses building materials to make buildings, to try to make downtown have a more cohesive look instead of 20 property owners developing their property in 20 different ways. And what this is ultimately going to become is a form-based code overlay district for the downtown. And part of the whole process, like I said, so far we've been meeting as a steering committee and discussing it and meeting with the consultant. We have a zoning consultant and somebody who's done several of these plans. And part of this, of course, is for a public open house to show what we've been working on, to get some public input. It's not going to be the kind of open house we did for the downtown TOD plan where I stand in front of a group and make a speech and everybody gets up and talks about it. We're going to do it as an open house format here in this room, the second Monday of next month. So we're going to do it from 5 to 7 p.m., Monday, June 10th. It very well could be in lieu of our EDC meeting, but that depends on whether or not a certain beta application gets fully submitted between now and then. But again, that's something we encourage you all to attend. It's important. This is a document and a policy. Many of you feel like we all do on staff and the elected officials and have a lot of interest in improving the downtown district. And this is part of it. It's a long process, as you've all witnessed and participated. You know, can be a step-by-step process, but steps like reopening the Bartlett tap, like getting more brewing built, like having Mr. Rafidia redevelop Bartlett Plaza, like hopefully attracting an apartment project or multiple apartment projects. This is all part of this overlay district plan. So again, another thing I wanted to put on there so you mark your calendars. And like I said, we may not have a meeting, a formal EDC meeting, but have an open house from 5 to 7 that night. And if you can't make it until 6:45 or 6:30 for work obligations, that's fine. But we do encourage you all to come and see this really detailed, long document that we've been working on, as Joe can attest to and Scott can attest to, where we talk about where the windows would be placed and what type of building materials and how close to the street and how tall the buildings can be and all that stuff. So it's an interesting project. I try to answer any questions you have about it.
This would be only for these new code policies, only for new construction.
You know what, you could say it's for new construction. There's a economic development term, I guess, that is substantial rehabilitation. So again, I'm going to use Bartlett Plaza as an example. Now, he's basically he's redeveloping it, beautifying the facade, but not necessarily building it according to like a TOD plan, not putting multiple levels on it or moving it closer to the street or anything like that. He does have plans to do possibly a new building in the outlet. He did get approval for that from the village board. So if and when a new building gets built in the parking field, that could certainly fit into the TOD plan. So I'm going to answer that. I don't want to make a categorical answer on that. It mostly applies to new projects, but then again, if somebody wanted to purchase, let's say, Main Street Plaza, just a few steps south of here, and redevelop it and put on a second story or a second and third story, this type of policy could help allow that. So it wouldn't necessarily be tearing down a building, it could be adding up.
What's the goal of the time frame to have the plan in place, or the policy in place for use?
I mean, we're looking at trying to get this all approved. I would like to say this summer. It's generic enough. But, I mean, we're already having the open house in June. It's probably accurate to say there'll be more changes and input. You know our deliberate manner of going through these. If there's a lot of feedback or some hopefully some constructive feedback, the plan can be changed. We feel like it's pretty strong and ready to go, but it doesn't mean we're going to have an open house in June and the board's going to approve it in July. It'll probably take multiple meetings for that to happen. But we'd like to get it in place, within the next several months.
Sounds good.
Well, something as complex as this, how does that work in an open house? Will there be graphics laid out, or how will you explain to people?
Well, both. There'll be graphics. The consultant will be there. Roberta Grill is the project leader of this and probably knows the plan just as well as anybody. Scott will be there, I'll be there, Joe will be there. We're there to answer questions, to talk about the document. I mean, I can tell you right now that we're looking at using the highest quality building materials in terms of allowing developers to gain more density and thus greater profit, hopefully, but also requiring them to use a higher level of materials. So there'll be more buildings that would look like Bartlett Town Center or Westgate Commons or something like that, a more attractive projects with architectural features. Part of the plan is we looked at dozens of different buildings in various communities to comment on visual preferences. So, I mean, it's...
Is there kind of a theme? Like, would you be able to categorize what that style is?
I'm not as much of an architectural expert to be able to do that, but, I mean, we talk about a lot of, roof lines, how far the door entryways should be between entrances for buildings. There's a big stress on increasing windows, up to 50% of building facades. So, a lot of talk about some of the materials that we just simply won't allow. And it'll be more really oriented towards brick and stone, some metal and steel. The document's going to go public soon, so you'll be able to see all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the goals, or I should say, two of the goals would be continuity and cohesiveness. I mean, because
That's it.
reflect upon where the TOD is, even with the overlay.
Right.
So that, yeah, okay.
That's accurate.
Not a very specific architectural feature, but continuity and exterior materials, so everything looks like it's.
That's accurate. It would.
Great.
We included Dr. Ackerman because her building is a very prime example of the type that we're looking for. When you see the way more brewing architectural features look, you'll see what we're talking about. It's a nice modern look. We're encouraging multiple levels. If some of you forgot, Dr. Ackerman has 2 apartment units upstairs, which classifies it at a 10% assessment level rather than 25%. So there's some areas that we're not only going to encourage second floor and third floor, we're going to require it. So we're looking to build up. People ask, how do you build up a downtown over a period of years? You increase the density. You bring the buildings closer to the sidewalk. You make it look more walkable. You improve the safety, like you talked about at last month's meeting. And you know, it's a step-by-step process, and the architecture is a big part of that. And that's what form-based code is all about. It's more general uses, but talking more about the buildings themselves.
I think you raise a really good point about the opportunity that's available to businesses when they redevelop their properties or develop new properties into mixed use, because I think certainly being assessed at 10% rather than 25 is pretty attractive, particularly in Cook County right now. So kudos on that one.
I mean, we could talk a lot about the Cook County property tax structure, but it puts a huge amount of pressure on a lot of the downtown businesses and property owners.
Tony, when you talk about higher density, the first thing I think of as far as what you're going to have to look at is a parking problem. Would you not have to have a certain amount of parking for a higher density piece of land?
That's a big question, and there's lots of different answers. The TOD plan looks to eliminate parking requirements as a zoning measure and work more with the developers in terms of the parking that they feel their developments need. I'm not saying that this is what the code is going to end up being, but in many cases, we have a lot of unutilized parking in the downtown area, and this is a strategy to bring more potential infill buildings at vacant lots or underutilized lots. There's ways of doing underground parking. There's very long-term talk about a potential parking deck even. So parking is, I call it the P word, and that's usually every project that comes through Bartlett and almost any community, there's some kind of discussion about parking. But I can tell you that this form-based code addresses it, but not to the same extent that our current zoning is, where it's very prescriptive of a restaurant needs this much parking, a dentist office needs this much. It's more flexible. And I can tell you that a lot of the denser and successful downtowns that a lot of people point towards have already adopted these and implemented them, these codes.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't see a new business item here, but Tony, do you have anything to announce?
I just, yeah, I'd always like to add a few. I mean, I hope all of you have had the opportunity to visit the Bartlett Tap. There was a very nice ribbon cutting there last week, and it's kind of open like gangbusters. And I've been there a few times myself, and I know I've seen some of you there, so I know you've checked it out. So that's always exciting, because I recall being asked probably 3 or 4 meetings in a row when it was going to open, and John Castilla worked very hard on it. He spent a lot of money, and it's not just the money. A lot of people spend that much money and more on their projects, but it was more like a labor of love with this guy, the way he restored it, the way he worked with our museum director, Pam, the way he incorporated so many historical artifacts into it. And like I said, this wasn't just like hiring an architect and hands off and waiting a few weeks to get it done. I mean, this guy replaced things that were original, broken, years ago, like the tap room. If you've seen the restoration he did to the bar, it's very, very impressive. and we just wish him all the luck and success in the world. That's why we selected him to be the Google case study, so he can help him get off. He is getting off to a strong start, but that can also help him get off to a hopefully stronger start. And then I just wanted to mention one thing. Last week at the last board meeting, the village board did approve the 2 industrial buildings that I had mentioned last month. A very large industrial developer, one of the largest industrial developers in the market, called Logistics Property Group, and they have plans to develop what we call the Cronin property. It's been owned by the Cronin family for over 50 years. I've met with Mrs. Cronin many times over the years I've been with the village. The property's not actually within the Brewster Creek Business Park. There's a plus to that, is that the property taxes from that aren't going to go into the TIF, even though that's one of the best TIFs in the state, and we love that TIF. But those property taxes go straight into the coffers of all the taxing bodies. They are 2 tandem buildings, 207,000 square foot each, closer to a $40 million investment than 30. So you're talking about some big-time development by some big-time developers out there. They've retained some of the best industrial brokers in the market, really 2 of the best, probably 2 of the top 10 brokers in the market, and who filled many buildings in Bartlett and elsewhere. So just wanted to let you all know that got approved last Tuesday.
Great.
On what street would that be going on?
I'm sorry?
On what street is the property going to be built on?
On what street?
On what street?
It's at Stearns and Munger. It's at the, what is it, the northeast corner of Stearns and Munger. It's before you turn right on Munger if you're heading west. It's a huge farm field right now that's not officially part of the business park. They went through a lot. Again, I didn't review the plans, but they're going to be putting part of a turn lane in. They worked with the neighbors to increase the buffer between the residential and these buildings.
A bike path, too, they were adding.
Sorry?
A bike path, they were adding that.
Yeah. I mean, they're good developers to work with. They made some concessions. And like I said, they're among the top industrial developers in the Chicago market. So there's always a risk when you build speculative buildings, but we really anticipate both of them filling within 6 months to a year of being completed, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think that's all I have for new business.
Any other comments?
I have a quick question. I saw an article at the beginning of May about 6 Illinois CVS's closing that were underperforming. Do we have any gauge, or has there been any chatter about the CVS here in town?
There hasn't. I saw the same thing, and I read the list, and as I always do, I kind of breathed a sigh of relief. Again, we have 2 CVS pharmacies in town. Came in around the same time, probably about when I started, about 14, 15 years ago. And one of them's in DuPage County, but in a high traffic volume area, but less of a neighborhood area. And then this one's kind of more like the old fashioned neighborhood pharmacy. Ours are performing well, knock wood, but we always keep an eye on corporate closures. And if you've seen the corporate closures and followed them for many years like I have, it's usually not just one round. For instance, our Radio Shack made the first round of closures, but eventually they all closed. Not saying that wouldn't happen with CVS, but it's something we always keep our eye on.
I had a question too. I was curious. I had a long talk the other day with Ed from the Bartlett house. And I was surprised that I hadn't heard anything about that, and he went on at great length about it.
Do you mean the house on Devon? Well, he has plans to redevelop it, but hasn't.
He made it sound like 30 days. it was all a done deal. I mean, he went on and on about all the stuff it was going to have. So how have I not heard of
Yeah,
this?
Scott and I met with him when,
Year and a half
last
ago.
time the weather was warm, I think. And I'm just going to generally say there's always people with plans to enhance their properties or to develop a property. Sometimes it takes a year, 2 years, sometimes it never happens. He does have plans to enhance that property.
Which one is this?
This is, it's used as a realty office, Magnum Realty, and it's on Devon, roughly across the street from a church over there, close, when you start getting towards the Hanover Park train station.
He's making it
And he has plans to enhance it as, I can best describe it as something like a bed and breakfast type of venue. I'm not sure how else to describe it.
He did say it was going to be an Airbnb, but he mostly talked about what a huge event venue it's going to be. And I'm telling you, because he went on and on about it, I said, I am very anxious. He joined the chamber for that purpose. And I said, I'm very anxious to see it. And he said, well, it's going to be about 30 days until you'll be able to see it, because we were already hanging the barn doors and it sounds like.
There's some renovations you can do without going through any planning process. In terms of if you want to rehab an interior of a property, we don't really regulate if it's Airbnb or not. But if you want to make it more of an official business in town, like you have events there.
Oh, that's what it's
and
gonna
that's
be.
the kind of thing you do need to come in and work with village staff for approvals on. He originally called me about the BETA grant for that.
Okay.
And the way he had proposed it to us at first wasn't really the type of sales tax generating or job creating type of project that we're looking for. I do want to mention to you that even though you haven't seen a BETA grant for a few months, we get calls from a lot of projects that just don't fit the parameters at all. Financial offices and hair salons and stuff like that. But I can't say whether or not that project's going to move forward and in exactly what manner. But we have met with them. I am certainly aware of it, and we'd be glad to work with them on it. I don't think it's going to be done in 30 days.
Okay. Well, it sounded like quite a place. And it is this, and this, this, and this.
We had the same conversation with him about a year ago. But when he does come in with a plan or a business model, we'll do everything we can to support him.
Yeah, I was just surprised I hadn't heard it when it was going to be so grandiose, so I was surprised I hadn't heard of it before, but.
It's a beautiful property. Toured the property, and there's an outbuilding, and he's got a lot of land back there.
Well, that's what I think he's developing more, is the outbuilding. It sounds big. And
We
it's
might
gonna
have
be
to
for
send an inspector to
weddings,
see what's going on.
Weddings and parties, and there's hot tubs, and there's a golf, driving range. And you name it, it had it.
Send our inspectors tomorrow to take.
Don't say you heard it from me.
All that in 30 days, huh?
Yeah.
We wish him luck. Anything else? I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. We adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.